Hey, my name is Jamie Arndt, and in this lesson, I'm going to show you why triads are an important thing to know on the guitar. What is a triad? A triad is a three-note chord made from the root, the third, and the fifth of a scale. And in this lesson, we're going to start out by talking about major triads. So that'll be the root, the major third or the natural third, and the fifth from the major scale. And we're going to talk about why triads are essential to know on the guitar. They're just simple little three-note chord shapes, and you might be thinking, well, I know much bigger chord shapes that have more notes. Why should we focus on these smaller chords that just have a few notes in them? First of all, they're really practical. In a band situation, you might not need to play all the notes. There might be another guitar player or a keyboard player, and you want to find just the right part of the guitar that's really going to make the part serve the song. Additionally, triads can be a great vehicle for learning all the notes up and down the fretboard and really learning and understanding the way the guitar lays out. So let's dive in with a breakdown of what triads are, where we can play them on the neck, and how to use them in practical performance. So as I mentioned at the top of this video, a triad is just a three-note grouping. We're going to think of a three-note chord, and we're going to focus on the major triad. So that's going to be the root, the third, and the fifth of a major scale. So if we take a C major triad, we're going to look at the C major scale. We're just going to grab the root, C, the third, E, and the fifth, G. And we get a three-note grouping like this. So this is what we'd call a root position triad. And it's called a root position because the root, C, is at the bottom. C, E, and G, or the root, the third, and the fifth. And you can remember root position triads by thinking about a tree. A tree comes up and is built from the root. A root position triad starts with the root at the bottom and is built from the root, stacking up the third and the fifth. And this three-note chord may look familiar. You might recognize it as the top three notes of an A position bar chord. We're just taking the top three notes. And if we change the order of these three notes, we'll still have a C triad, but it's going to be an inversion, meaning we're inverting the notes, so there'll be a different note in the middle, on top, and on the bottom. So our first inversion C triad is this shape. And we call this a first inversion because it's the first inversion after the root position. And it's built from the third, E, the fifth, G, and now our root C is on top. So if we go back to our original root position, 1, 3, 5, now we're going to look at our first inversion, and it's 3, 5, 1. Those are our scale degrees, 3, 5, 1. So 1 becomes 3 becomes 5, and 5 becomes 1. Each note in the triad just goes up to the next note. C, E, G, E, G, C. And you might notice that this looks just like the top part of an E-shaped bar chord. But we're just going to take that top part because a triad only has three notes. And our final triad in this series is going to be a second inversion, meaning we're going to start with the fifth at the bottom, then the root in the middle, and then the third on top. And if you play this shape, you might notice it looks just like a D chord. But now we're just starting at the 12th fret. So we have the fifth, G, the root, C, and the third, E. So from our first inversion, the third becomes the fifth becomes the root, and the root becomes the third. It's just going to the next note in the series. So that is our second inversion triad. So to recap, we have root position, first inversion, second inversion. And the cool thing about this is each note in the triad gets its shot at being the bottom, the middle, and the top note of the chord. For instance, let's look at the root, C. In our root position, the root's at the bottom. There's our C. In the first inversion, our root's on top. And in our second inversion, the root's in the middle. So a great way to practice this is just to go up and down. And And I also recommend taking this through all 12 keys. So if you want to make any of these major triads a minor triad, we know that a major chord is built from the root, the third, and the fifth, and a minor chord or a minor triad is built from the root, the flatted third, and the fifth. So to make any of these major triads a minor triad, all you have to do is take the third and flat it, so turning that E into an E flat. So there's my major triad. I'm going to take that third, make it an E flat. Now it's a C minor triad. Here's our major first inversion. I'll find my E. I'll make it an E flat. There's my C minor. Here's our second inversion chord. There's an E natural. That's our third. I'm going to make it the flatted third. Just move it to E flat. I got to change my fingers around a bit. And now I have C minor, so I can also practice my C minor triads. So why is this useful? Well, when we're playing in a band situation, we might not need to play this full chord. This full chord has a big range from the low 6th string all the way up. And in a lot of styles of music, there might be a keyboard player, another guitar player, a vocalist. And if we want our guitar parts to really pop when we're playing rhythm guitar, we can find an area or a frequency that works that'll cut through. And one of the best examples of that is in Motown music. There was a session player with the Funk Brothers, the name of the group of studio musicians that played on all the Motown tracks, and his name was Eddie Chank Willis. And they called him Eddie Chank Willis because he played a guitar part called the Chank. Just that's the way it sounds. And in almost all those classic Motown tunes from the middle 60s, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Four Tops, The Temptations, The Supremes, Smokey Robinson, you'll hear there's a guitar part that's just playing on beats 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A real sharp pointed attack. It hits at the same time as the snare drum. Now this might not be the most interesting or complicated guitar part, but it's serving the overall song and it's making the song have a signature sound. We also hear a lot of this in reggae music, in ska. And this is just really giving the guitar a voice that cuts through. You don't need to play the whole chord. You can just come up with a signature part. It can also be great when you know your triads and inversions. If you want to play a higher guitar part and go through chord positions, you can find, using inversions, chords that are closer together. For instance, if I have this shape and I want to play C, F, G, C, now I could do that and move it around. But if this is my first inversion C triad, I can make it become a root position F triad just by changing 2 notes. And then a second inversion G triad is just down here. So now I can play this chord progression with very smooth voice leading, meaning one chord is very close to the next. So now I can play these triads and I can play chords that are close together because I know where these shapes are. So the next step, once you've memorized the major and minor triads on strings 1 through 3, is to take a look at the same thing, the major triads on strings 2 through 4. And we're going to start with the second inversion, C. This is a C triad. There's the fifth, the root, and the third. Just like an A chord, right? But we've moved it up here. There's the root in the middle. Then we have the root position, C, E, G, 1, 3, 5. And then we have the first inversion, starting with the third, E, G the fifth, and C the root. And that first inversion you can actually play using open strings down here. There's the third, an open G is the fifth, and C is the root. You can tell that's just like a C chord without that low C. And of course, you can make all these shapes minor just by flatting the E. And these triads are great for rock rhythm guitar. You can do a Rolling Stones thing, going from a C triad to an F triad. It means you can hammer on that chord if you want from C, hammering on an F. It really makes it expressive, and you can play a lot of iconic rock riffs using just triads. So to continue your study, let's go ahead and look at the triads on strings 3 through 5. Here's our root position, C, E, G. We have an open G in this case. First inversion, 3, 5, 1. Second inversion, 5, 1, 3. And because we had open strings in that lowest version, let's check it out up here using fretted notes, 1, 3, 5. There's our root position, an octave up. Then let's look at the triad series on strings 4 through 6. We're going to start with the lowest possible shape, which is the second inversion, 5, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5, and 3, 5, 1. Now on these lower strings, they don't sound quite as good, but they're still important to know to help you understand and learn all the notes on the fretboard. But also, I use the triad shapes in this lower position, not for really playing chords, but for starting lead lines. If I want to start a line in C major, I might just slide into the third, the fifth, and the root. So triads have a great application for lead lines as well. So my recommendation is to try on every string set, go through all the keys, and try learning some songs using just triads and connecting them. You'll find that they're a great tool for learning all the notes up and down the fretboard, as well as coming up with some cool and iconic guitar parts. Once again, my name is Jamie Arent. Thank you for watching this lesson. I'll see you next time.